watching Minute to Skim It on the Experience. So, hello. All right, we've got lots of books to review for you guys today. And Hannah just basically showed up just the number ones and showed them to me, and I was like, "Oh, we have
just for the indies."
Just for the indies, yeah. I was like, we have got a lot to do.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Dexter Morgan, and I may be a monster, but I'm an evolving monster. All right, guys, tonight we are going to talk about the zombie episode of What If. I'll give my quick thoughts on the Shang-Chi movie, but first I want to talk about a couple trailers that dropped, starting with Dexter. Now, some of you may know that I have a personal connection to the show, having the honor of having done a cameo on it. I got to play a dead body during season 2. I even got to play a comic book writer, which I thought was a lot of fun. And of course, that wouldn't have happened without Tone Rodriguez, who got to play my killer. So I already have an affinity for the show. Plus, even before I was on it, I loved the show when it started, but as it got further down the line, I felt that it kind of strayed a bit from what made it great, especially in the last couple seasons. And let's all admit it. The ending was disappointing. I don't know anybody who was really happy with the ending of the series. So I think even the folks at Showtime were a little disappointed in the ending. Hence, we're getting another season. They're calling a do-over. So they dropped a teaser trailer today. And the thing that made the show work for me was the idea that Harry had raised Dexter with this code that basically turned him from a serial killer into a vigilante. And while he was definitely working outside the law, he was at least focused on taking out immoral people, killers, people that deserve to be taken out. So I really thought that was the backbone of the series, and they kind of strayed away from that as the show progressed. It got to the point where Dexter was making a lot of dumb decisions. You know, where he was very smart, very focused and logical in the early shows, he became much more, I don't even know what the word for it is. He wasn't cautious. He just he made a lot of mistakes. Now, it also showcased how hard it was for him to blend into a normal life, where the teaser feels like that whole thing is back. He's living in this small town. He's running a store. He's dating what looks to be a deputy. He's part of the community. Everybody knows him, and he gets along with everybody. And this was the neat thing about Dexter, is you would have that setup. At the same time, at night, he'd go out and kill people, which, again, that's what made the show work for me. And it looks like they've gone back to that in the trailer, at least. But what looks like it happens is that this is a nice, quiet community, and he's able to keep quiet for a while. And then there's this discovery of a serial killer in the area. And this, of course, brings back his dark passenger. That's what he always called his urge to kill, his dark passenger. And he ends up going on the hunt again. Now, this is the Dexter that was so great in the early seasons. And, of course, we get... they do still have ties to what happened later on. We get a glimpse at the end of his now teenage son, Harrison, who, of course, was like 5 or 6 years old at the end of the show. And I got to tell you, I am definitely up for this series. Plus, it's got Clancy Brown in it. You put Clancy Brown in a series, I'm at least going to give the first episode a try. So Clancy Brown's there. It's Dexter. Michael C. Hall is awesome. And I'm in it. Plus, you're going to get the return of John Lithgow and Jennifer Carpenter, which is interesting because both these characters are dead. Now, they could be the new Jiminy Cricket-like guiding force that James Remar used to be on the show. And I haven't heard if James Remar is coming back or not. I absolutely would love to see him back. Kyle says, JD says, I listen to Clancy Brown read a phone book. You know, if he's on Cameo, you could probably request that. All right, so that's my thought on the Dexter trailer. If you haven't seen the trailer, pop over to YouTube. You can take a look at it. It's not a long one. It's just a teaser trailer. But it definitely gives that Dexter vibe that the show had early on, not when it was kind of petering out at the end. We also got to see the release of the first Matrix Resurrection trailer. Now, this one left me curious but not sold, I got to admit. I love that both Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss are back. I also like the additions of Jessica Henwick, who is probably the best thing to come out of the Iron Fist series. Christina Ricci's in it. Jonathan Groff, who, if you don't know that name, he was, what's the name of that serial killer show on Netflix? The two of them are interviewing. Anyway, but he's also the king in Hamilton. The "You'll be back, you will see, don't you know that you belong to me." Yeah, that's Jonathan Groff. So he's in here. You got Neil Patrick Harris, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Priyanka Chopra Jonas is in this. So there's a really good cast around it. But then we see that they've swapped Lawrence Fishburne out for Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who, of course, played Black Manta. So I love him as an actor, but why didn't they just bring Lawrence Fishburne back to play Morpheus? Why did we switch characters? Seems kind of strange to me. And I got to tell you, through the whole thing, I just wanted one Mr. Anderson from Hugo Weaving. I don't think he's in the film. I think they've got other agents, but I don't know. Without Hugo Weaving, I don't know if the threat feels the same. Now, because Lawrence Fishburne's old now and doesn't want to get in the wire harness. That's fine. They didn't, yeah. Okay. But still, you should have Lawrence Fishburne. If you got Lawrence, yeah. If you're bringing back Keanu Reeves, you got to bring back Lawrence Fishburne. But it looks amazing. But that's the thing, is it looks amazing. And it seems like the idea is that both Neo and Trinity are somehow back in the Matrix. And it's hard, but it's really kind of hard to tell what's going on. Will this further the story, or are they really just kind of rehashing the other films? I mean, is this all about bringing Neo back out of him and getting him to bring down the Matrix again? I mean, what is the story? That's all. I'm going to wait to pass judgment until the second trailer, where you usually get at least a little more about the story. So, yeah, just going to hold out on that. Another interesting thing is PlayStation had their 2021 showcase to show off some of the stuff coming out for the PS5. And I'm a moderate gamer. I play World of Warcraft. I like some of the Star Wars games. I've got what's the recent one? The last the Jedi: The Fallen Order that I'm been meaning to play. I haven't had it started yet, but I've got it loaded on the computer. Stuff like that. So I'm a moderate gamer, but some of these even got me excited. So stuff for the PS5 coming up. There's a remake of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is an absolutely beloved game. So the fact that they're going to kind of remake it and put it on the PS5, that's got a lot of people excited. That's got a great storyline with Revan in it. So folks are looking forward to that. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves is coming out. Now that's going to be a collection of, it's a bundle of the recent Uncharted games. So it's not really new games, but it's new to the PS5. So they're packaging that together. Marvel's Wolverine was announced, which is a game from the same company that did Marvel's Spider-Man and the Miles Morales game in 2018 and 2020. So now they're doing a Wolverine game, and this was a complete surprise. There hadn't been any buzz about a Wolverine movie or a game, so this is pretty interesting. Also, they're putting out Marvel Spider-Man 2, which is going to team up Peter Parker and Miles Morales. So you got the first two, now they're coming together. And they gave us a good look at the upcoming God of War Ragnarok. So we got to see some gameplay from that, which, again, there's a lot of really good reasons to pick up a PS5 if you haven't picked one up yet, or if you've been on the fence about it. Again, I haven't. I think my last game system I bought was a PS3, so I'm a little behind. I may invest eventually, but we'll see. Yeah, by the way, anybody out there wants me to do more game reviews and wants to send me a PS5 and some games, I can get you my address. Just saying. PlayStation, if you're out there, Sony, I can absolutely be a shill. But anyway, in some interesting news today, the upcoming movie Halloween Kills, they're going to do a day and date release. So on October 15th, you can go to the theater and see the latest Halloween movie, or you can watch it on Peacock. I don't know anybody who actually has Peacock. I'm curious about it because they've got the new Dan Brown series, the Da Vinci Code spinoff, the thing about Robert Langdon. And I'm a huge fan of those books, so I want to see this Robert Langdon series. But I don't know what else is on Peacock, and now they're gonna test putting a Halloween movie out day and date on Peacock. I really thought this was dead. I didn't think they were going to do this anymore. I mean, between what Shang-Chi did as a theatrical only release and just how bad Suicide Squad did as a day and date release, I really thought it wasn't going to happen. And the reasonings to do it doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, I know for a while there, Venom was set to release on October 15th. So Halloween would have been fighting against Venom, Let There Be Carnage. But they moved Venom up to October 1st. So Halloween Kills is the only real big movie opening that weekend. But the word is that Universal is really happy with how Boss Baby Family Business did in the same format, doing the day and date release. But I got to tell you, there's a huge difference between Halloween and Boss Baby. With Boss Baby, your audience is families, so they're not going to go to the theater because a lot of children can't get vaccinated yet. It's not that safe for younger kids to go to the theater because, again, they're not vaccinated. Halloween is not a kids' movie. This is a date movie for people. This is a horror movie. This is a go out and see movie. This is not sit on your couch and watch type of movie. So I don't know what they're thinking. I don't get it. It seems like a really bad move on Universal's part. Now, maybe they're just trying to get people to actually sign up for Peacock. I think changing the name would be a good step, like maybe Universal Plus or something less peacocky. Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's the news. Now, before we jump to What If, I want to talk about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, I'm not going to do spoilers here. There will be no spoilers. But I got to see the movie finally. I didn't get to go see over the weekend just because of the way things worked out. I never got a chance. So it was Wednesday afternoon. I literally finished the show yesterday and drove to the theater and was in the theater 45 minutes later, sitting there waiting for the movie to start. By the way, 25 minutes of trailers before a movie is excessive. It doesn't need to be. I love seeing like Marvel movie trailers before Marvel movies, but by the time they played the Eternals trailer, the 7th or 8th trailer in, I was so done that I didn't even want to see it. Like, can we just get to the movie, please? Yeah, I can see why you do that, JD. And I got to tell you, there was one movie up there, Roland Emmerich's new movie, Moonfall, about how the moon suddenly crashes into the Earth and how it takes place in 2022. And normally you look at these futuristic science fiction movies and you think, oh, that's never going to happen, or that's so far off. I'm looking at the last 2-3 years. It might be a documentary. After what's been going on the last couple of years, the moon just crashing into the Earth, it could happen. At this point, it absolutely could happen because I got nothing else. You know, that's just the way it is. But that was one of the trailers beforehand. After the long line of trailers, some of which for movies that I don't even know why are being made, others like, oh, okay, but we finally got to the movie. And hands down, this is one of Marvel's best movies. It's the least like a Marvel movie of anything I've seen. It doesn't, there are moments that something Marvel happens, a reference to other movies, whether it's the background picture, an image, or a character that pops up. They don't seem odd, as in they don't break you out of the movie. They're not poorly added. They're really well done. But at the same time, it's a reminder that you're in the MCU because you forget. A lot of these movies you watch and you're like, oh yeah, this is MCU, definitely. Oh, this is definitely MCU. Absolutely forget about it. You know, it feels more like a big Asian fantasy film, you know, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But it also shifts through the different styles. I mean, you get the Raid type stuff, or you know, the Chow Yun-Fat type movie, and then you drifted it into a little bit of Jackie Chan, but you drift that into the more fantasy stuff, and they kind of move back and forth, and it's almost seamless. You know, when we look back in the past at Wenwu and some of the stuff he did, it has that epic feel to it. When we get to Shang-Chi and what he's doing in the modern day, it has that more modern day feel to it. So it's a really interesting blending of the two. And I found the movie to be, there's a lot of hype for the movie, a lot of people saying really great things about it. All of it is legit. Okay, there really isn't a bad moment in the movie. There isn't a head-scratching moment. There's a couple things that don't get overtly explained, but we don't need them explained, you know? We've seen in the trailer that Wong is fighting the Abomination, and there's some stuff around that, but just it's just a really good movie. And if you've got people that aren't Marvel fans, but are fans of martial art films, or there's a term for those the big wire work martial art films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If they're into those kind of movies, this is a good movie for them to go to. You could take them in and then ease them into the Marvel universe, because there's very little connection other than a couple appearances during the film and then the post-credit scene. So this is a great Marvel movie to jump in on with new viewers. The acting is absolutely top-notch. I am so impressed by Tony Leung, who plays Wen Wu. Anytime he's on the screen, that's where your attention is. He is not a mustache-twirling villain. He is definitely he's a three-dimensional antagonist, not a villain. They give him great reasons. They give him great motivation. And you feel sorry for him at some points, where you're like, okay, he wasn't a good dad, but you see why he wasn't a good dad. You see the sacrifices he was willing to make when he was making them. It's a really strong character. And I think there was a lot of concern going into the film about how they would deal with the yellow peril trope that both Fu Manchu, the original father of Shang-Chi, and the Mandarin have because of when they were created. And they do it by completely changing this character, not in threat level or anything like that, but they just give him a more pure motivation, a more understanding side, that you don't look at him and go, he's a bad guy just because, well, the yellow peril thing was he's a bad guy just because he's Asian. Well, here he's not a bad guy just because he's the antagonist. He's got reasons and motivations, and you feel for him in this movie. Simu Liu is a breakout star here. He does a great job and is really impressive, both in the physicality of the role, but also in just the acting, the emotion, the believability of what this guy is going through. The relationship he has with Awkwafina's character is surprisingly good, because Marvel is not great at romances in the films. They do better in the TV series. So the Vision the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, their romance made a lot more sense in the TV show than it ever did on screen. They're not great at that kind of relationship thing. Maybe Steve and Peggy, but yeah, they need a couple movies or something like that to really focus on it. So they didn't bother here. There's a mention of it by her grandma in the very beginning, and then it's never really brought up. You know, Shang says, we're just friends. And that's it. That's the end of it, you know? There's never a moment where you're like, oh, they're going to kiss, or, oh, they should get together. We never even deal with that. It just, there's a love story, but it's not them. And that's terrific. There's a lot of saving of the character of Trevor Slattery as well. I won't get too much into that because, again, I don't want to get into spoilers today. But Ben Kingsley is absolutely superb in this movie. He doesn't have a ton, but he's got more than a cameo. He's important to the movie, and they do a really good job of connecting the dots between Iron Man 3, which a lot of people weren't happy with how they handled the Mandarin, and what we've got now, even to the point of explaining the title of the Mandarin. They did a really good job with that. The martial arts in this are great. The fight scenes are fantastic. Yeah. I am really just blown away by this film. It is really good, and it deserves all the hype that it's getting. It's honestly that level of good. This is going to be one of the best Marvel origin stories. You know, it's definitely in the top 10 of Marvel movies, maybe even the top 5. And I think just pure story, it's better than like some of the epic ones, because I look at stuff like Civil War that a lot of people love. There's not a lot to Civil War. It's more of the fight and everything else. So I would put this above Civil War, things like that. This is really good. It's above Ant-Man. It's above Thor, and I'm a big fan of the first Thor movie and Kenneth Branagh's directing. It's up there with like Captain America, the first Avenger, when it comes to origin stories. It's up there with the Doctor Strange movie, which I'm a huge fan of. So that's my thought on it. The non-spoiler. We will do a spoiler discussion. We will break it down. I will talk about everything from Wong and the Abomination and Morris, all of that on Tuesday. Tuesday's show will be the big Shang-Chi spoiler conversation. So join me on Tuesday afternoon for that one. Let's see. JD says, I don't think you can really rank Marvel movies anymore. They came out over such a long time, and they're products of different times and cultures. Now, that is a fair point. Also, it's hard to judge movies that are different genres. You know, this is a very different movie from anything else in the MCU. But you can't really compare Ant-Man to Captain America, the First Avenger, because one is a war story and the other is a heist movie. And you wouldn't try to compare Silverado to Platoon, right? Or, you know, you compare movies that are the same genre. And folks, if you're considering superhero movies or comic book movies a genre, you're not looking at it right, because that's the same thing as saying, well, all cop movies are the same. But then you look at a movie like A Thin Blue Line or Training Day, and they're nothing like Police Academy or Die Hard. I mean, they're all very different, but they're still all cop movies. Die Hard's a cop movie. Is it a Christmas movie? That's a debate we can have another time. But John McClane's a cop. So, oh, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We're going to talk about it more in depth on Tuesday, so I'm hoping you'll join us then. But yeah, it is a really good movie, and it deserves a bigger conversation. So that's why I only did a little bit of it. We're going to talk about What If Zombies, because that's what my Thursday show is. It's discussion of the Marvel Disney Plus series or whatever they're doing. And, of course, Marvel What If Zombies was last night. So we are going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, let's do our commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Today's comics market is ripe with new titles by creators who are determined to get their books into your hands. My name is Henri Compen. For the last decade, I've been making and selling my own creator-owned comics and dealing as a collector in live sales. My signature series, Yi Sun Shin, is the book that cannot be defeated in battle and has over 250,000 copies in print. Now I'm taking comics to the next level and laying the groundwork for my fellow creators to get their voices heard so they can connect directly with you. This is your chance to engage live with top comic book talent and get your comics signed without having to wait in long lines or pay any fees. But remember, we only have a limited amount of their books in stock, so always remember to call it as you see it.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. We have covered all the news. We've covered Shang-Chi, so let's get into Marvel's What If Zombies. Hey, JD, how about that spoiler rolling thing? Starting to think that's the only reason I do spoilers on Thursdays, just so I could see that trailer, that clip, because I do enjoy that. That's a lot of fun. All right, first thing, hey, if you are watching, post in the chat. If you're watching this live, post in the chat whether or not you are current with What if you've seen the zombie episode, and if you have, what you thought about it, because I got mixed feelings about it. But I'll be honest, that my mixed feelings are, I'm not a zombie fan. I'm not a horror guy, which is hilarious because I've written a lot of horror stories. I used to partner with Steve Niles, the creator of, the co-creator of 30 Days of Night. I've also worked with Ben Temple's the other creator, but I have done a lot of horror stuff, whether it was for Zenoscope, for IDW. I've done a lot of horror, and I don't watch it. I don't like it that much. I don't like to sit down to be scared, and zombies aren't necessarily a genre that I am particularly taken to. That said, I didn't watch the episode at midnight, which I usually do. I waited till the next morning because I didn't necessarily want to watch a zombie cartoon before going to sleep. So that was the one big change. But the episode itself, I thought was pretty good. You know, they got back a good majority of the cast. Mark Ruffalo, of course, is kind of the point of view character. He's the Rick Grimes of this episode, if you would. And it's Mark Ruffalo. Jeffrey Wright, of course, is there as the Watcher. And of course, and if you've noticed, you can see more of the Watcher again. Every episode, we're getting a clearer and clearer picture of the Watcher. Chadwick Boseman is back as T'Challa. Paul Bettany is back as the Vision. Sebastian Stan is Bucky. Evangeline Lilly shows up as Hope Van Dyne. Some of the more interesting ones we didn't know we were going to get. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang. Jon Favreau back as Happy Hogan. Denai Guerrera is back again as Okoye. Emily Van Camp reprises her role as Sharon Carter, not as the Power Broker. We even get David Dastmalchian, the Polka Dot Man, returning as Kurt from XCon, the Scott Lang's buddies. Tom Von Lawler returns as Ebony Maw. The two people who don't return, Steve Rogers, we get Josh Keating instead, and it's not much dialogue. And then Hudson Thames is doing the voice of Peter Parker. Now, was this a timing issue or a contractual issue because of their deal with Sony? I don't know. You'll also notice that Spider-Man's costume is not the one from the movies. It's more designed like the one they use at the Disney theme parks now. like a variation of the one he's wearing in the movies without being exactly the same. And I think Sony actually owns the rights to that costume design. So just keep that in mind. JD points out an interesting thing I want to post out here too, that starting next week, the Thursday show right now, we're going to move it up to 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. So Thursday is going to start airing at the same time that the Tuesdays and Wednesday shows are. So going forward, starting next week, the Dan Wickline Show will be on 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No more of the jumping time thing. So please make a note of that so you can tune in, because I like having you guys here. So it's always more fun when I get interaction. All right. So this episode obviously takes place around the beginning of Infinity War. But there are some very specific things that are different about this universe. It doesn't seem like Civil War happened. When we get to see how the zombie apocalypse happened, it's a little out of order. Because Civil War broke up the Avengers, but when the spread of the infection is taking off, it's the Avengers who first respond. It's Captain America, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Black Panther. Well, that wasn't the Avengers lineup at any point in any of the movies. It's Hawkeye in his Hawkeye costume. It's Black Panther in his Civil War costume. But it's Black Widow in her Endgame look, the short blonde hair. I think she had that in Infinity War too. But she wouldn't have that without Civil War. But Civil War, the Avengers would have broken up. So there's a chance that Civil War didn't happen, but still something happened. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that things are definitely different because the Avengers are working together at this point. And not only does she have the short blonde hair, but she has the vest. So she's gone and met her sister and helped bring down the Red Room at that point, Black Panther, or Black Widow. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, this opens up with the scene of Banner being teleported across space and time by Heimdall into the Sanctum Sanctorum, but Wong and Doctor Strange aren't there. Now, the interesting thing here is this is about 2 weeks after when the infection is supposed to happen. But this is the beginning of Infinity War. The cause of the infection is Janet Van Dyne being brought back from the quantum realm, having gotten this quantum virus. And yeah, as Scott Lang says in the Ant-Man movie, do you guys just put quantum in front of everything? So it's a quantum virus, but that scene, that part of that movie where Janet gets pulled back, takes place after Infinity War. It takes place between or concurrently, so that right at the end they do the snap. So timing on this whole movie, this whole episode, is a little wonky. And then there's a bigger thing at the end we'll get to of why it just doesn't seem to click right. And I haven't really noticed that many big issues, so it's weird to see it in this one. But so Banner returns to an empty sanctum, and when he goes outside and Ebony Maw and Cole Obsidian show up and the Hulk won't come out, he's a little worried, and then suddenly a portal opens up and Iron Man's hand sticks out and blasts Ebony Maw in the back of the head, and he gets excited. He's like, oh yeah, Tony, all right, yeah, Iron Man's going to kick your ass. And then they just destroy the two guys and start chewing on them. And Banner's like, that's a little overkill, guys. And that's when we realize they're zombies. And he gets rescued. It's Iron Man, it's Wong, and Doctor Strange. But this is the important thing, they still have the ability to use their powers and technology. Wong is still using the sling ring. Iron Man is still using his suit, even though they're zombies. So this is more of the Marvel zombies from the comic than it is like the Walking Dead type zombies or George Romero zombies. And of course, Marvel Zombies was created by Robert Kirkman and Sean Phillips, so that's that type of thing. But the Marvel Zombies comic, where it is that same type, and there's a couple other beats that happen straight from the comic. Overall, the Marvel Zombies comic series was about how the zombies interact with each other. This, again, is like a typical zombie movie about the survivors. So now Banner gets saved by the Wasp, who shows up and launches a bunch of insects at them, which then makes me wonder, because the insects chew through these guys, do they not get infected? Because they realize what the type of virus it is later on. But if that's the case, then maybe you have to have a certain level of intellect to become a zombie, which is interesting. That's completely new too. And again, we see the Watcher really close here. He's almost getting too close. Like, hey, personal space, will you? Back up just a little. But so we see them. They take him out of there. The Cloak also gets involved, which is interesting. The Cloak is what causes Wong to die. Thought that was fascinating. He gets him caught in a portal and his head chopped off. And it's like, wow, that cloak is protective of certain people, and Wong is not one of them, at least zombie Wong. Like I said, saving Janet Van Dyne is the entire start. And Hope Van Dyne, who shows up as Wasp, seems to take the apocalypse as her fault, which is interesting. And this is the second of 5 what ifs that Hope is a key figure in whatever causes the problem. Now, I don't know if that's a play on words for them, the fact that her name is Hope, but both here and in the What If We Lost the Avengers episode, Hope is the catalyst. Her wanting her mom back here is what does it, and then in the other one, her joining S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, we then switch over and we get a video diary of how to survive a zombie apocalypse with Spider-Man narrating, and it really does feel like one of the Spider-Man movie things. There's little animation things and stuff like that, and it's really cute. It's kind of like one of the videos he was filming in the Spider-Man movies. But we also get to see who else is left. And it's kind of an interesting grouping because it's not any of the big heroes. It's like all the sidekicks or all the supporting characters. It's Happy Hogan. It's Kurt, one of the guys from ex-con. It's Bucky. It's Sharon Carter. Also, there's Okoye, who is actually showed up having left Wakanda, where Wakanda is safe. She leaves Wakanda because the Black Panther has gone missing. Now, they don't say that he's dead, and I have a feeling that with the technology of the suit, they would probably know if he died, if that makes sense. I mean, they've got advanced technology. Plus, the suit is vibranium laced, and it would be really hard for a zombie to bite through it, I would think. Also kind of interesting, Happy has Tony's wrist repulsor that he uses in Civil War to fight Bucky at one point. And every time he fires, he goes blam, 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 which I find hilarious because there's a problem when they're filming movies, when the guns and stuff don't make noise. Actors have this subconscious thing of making the noise themselves, and then they either have to refilm it and try to get them not to, or they have to take it out in post, and it's really a hassle. So for him doing that is kind of funny, and it also becomes kind of a sad joke later, a sad tie back later on. Yep. Oh, David S. Malchian, who's Polka Dot Man and Kurt. He's also, if you're watching the Long Halloween animated movie from DC, he's Calendar Man. He was on the Flash TV series as Abracadabra, and he was in the original Dark Knight movie as one of Joker's henchmen, his main henchman. So David Dastmalchian has been all over superhero movies, like insanely all over the place. He's like on everybody's speed dial. All right, so another interesting thing is where they're hiding out is this conglomeration of subway cars and buses that Peter has put together and webbed up between two high-rise buildings, which would be a great place to hide during a zombie apocalypse because they wouldn't be able to get out there, except there's a bunch of Avengers who can fly. The Falcon can fly. Iron Man can fly. It seems like they would be vulnerable up there after all, when you think about it. But, all right, we're going to let that go. Now, they pick up this signal from someone who says that they've got a cure, and it's coming from Camp Lehigh. And, of course, Camp Lehigh is big in the MCU. It's where Steve Rogers got his training before he became Captain America. It's where they found Arnim Zola later on. It's where the Tesseract was hidden back in the 70s when they had to go back in time to get it from Howard Stark. So Camp Lehigh has popped up a lot, and it makes sense that they would put it here. Now, of course, they look like they're in the same building as Arnim Zola was founded in when they get there. There's a lot to it. I shouldn't jump ahead, but there's been, I think it's another proof that Civil War didn't actually happen in this universe, because blowing up that base was part of Civil War. So there's a lot of things that make me think Civil War doesn't actually happen. Actually, that was Winter Soldier that took place in. This is a very different timeline. Okay. So they head there by train, and when they go to the train station, it's kind of interesting because they do the horrible thing of separating, and in doing so, that causes problems. And Peter even remarks, "Hey, you don't separate. Don't you guys even have?" Because it's Okoye who suggests they separate. He's like, "Don't you guys have horror movies in Wakanda?" And she says, and it's one of the best lines in it, "We don't need horror movies. We have American reality television." Love that line. Also, they call back to Ant-Man and the Wasp. They're traveling by way of the shrunken down Pym van and then grow it up to kill a zombie who looked in kind of like the pigeon did in that movie. So there's a lot of really good callbacks and stuff in this episode. Now, they're attacked there by Hawkeye and the Falcon and a bunch of nameless zombies. And Happy Hogan gets infected. Sharon ends up killing him with the little wrist thing and says blam when she does it. Okoye kills the Falcon. And it's kind of interesting because she goes, to Sam, to Bucky, "Oh, that was your friend. I am sorry." And he goes, "I should be upset about it, but I'm not." And then you realize Falcon and Winter Soldier never took place. These two aren't as bonded as we're used to them now as well. And once they get the train started and they're moving, the zombie Cap shows up and he infects Sharon. Bucky comes to try to rescue, and we get a fight between Bucky and Cap. And he ends up splitting Cap in half with the shield and then taking the shield. But as Cap falls out the back of the train, Bucky says, "I guess this is the end of the line," which is a callback to a bunch of the Captain America movies where one of them says to the other, "I'm with you until the end of the line." So that was a pretty deep cut there, too. Now, Sharon starts to attack, and Hope flies in and ends up going into her mouth for some reason. And then, a la the whole Thanos butt theory, goes inside and expands and blows apart Sharon, But in doing so, there was an open wound. So we've now got the ticking clock, slow to be infected trope of one of our heroes being, slowly becoming a zombie. And it kind of goes from there. They get to Camp Lehigh and they have to go through a swarm of zombies. So Hope picks them up and carries them over the fence. But there's a scene where she's talking to Peter and she's asking him how he can stay so positive. And we get the first MCU reference to Uncle Ben. We have not had Uncle Ben mentioned other than a suitcase that says BFP on it for Benjamin Franklin Parker. There's been no mention of Uncle Ben. It's always been Tony and all these. He mentions his parents and he mentions Uncle Ben and how all of this loss he's gotten used to now, and how Aunt May used to say, because she's gone now too, how if we don't keep smiling when they can't, then we might as well be gone too. So Hope ends up sacrificing herself and gets them in there. And we find out that the zombies aren't going into the base. It's because the Vision is there. And there's something in the Mind Stone that's keeping them out. It's repelling them. They won't actually enter the building, which is great. Hey, we got a safe location, except what Vision is doing. He captured Black Panther and was chopping parts off of him to feed Wanda, who became a zombie. And that may be the darkest thing in the MCU yet. It's like, oh, you thought this Doctor Strange episode last week was dark. Let's just turn that up to 11, shall we? But hey, T'Challa's still alive, just missing a leg. And of course, Wanda comes out and starts attacking, kills off Kurt, who keeps calling her Baba Yaga, which he did in Wanda to Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And ends up going through all these people as they're trying to escape. And Vision, they finally convince Vision to help. Oh, and he's got a cure. He really does have a cure. He cured Scott Lang. Well, part of Scott Lang. Scott Lang's head is in a glass jar. And he's just doing a bunch of dad jokes through the whole thing. He's not really helping. He's just doing dad jokes. It is one of the strangest things. Brian says, when Scarlet Witch threw that zombie at the Quinjet, I laughed. I also found it interesting that Wanda and Vision's roles were sort of reversed, yet Vision was capable of despicable things. Absolutely. That was what I mean by going dark. This was the horrific, horrible things that Vision did because of his love for Wanda, that he was trying to keep her safe and keep her, controlled by feeding her parts of another Avenger. That's just so weird and so wrong. But, they try to get out of there, and we lose more of them as it goes. We lose Okoye, then we lose Becky, and then Hulk, Banner finally gets Hulk to come out to fight. And we get this fight between the Hulk and Scarlet Witch as a zombie, and they go away from it. We don't get the fight. They give us this fight that everybody would want to see, and they go, yeah, that's going to take place over there. We're going to follow the jet. And, of course, giant Hope Van Dyne is now a zombie, and she's trying to grab the Quinjet, or the Quad Jet, I think is what they're calling it at that point. And they have to get away. And as Brian said, when they do finally get away, she throws a zombie body at them. It does nothing. But just it's like hurling a gun at Superman after you've emptied the bullets. Well, the plan is that they're going to fly back. They've got the Mind Stone from... Vision pulls the Mind Stone out of his head because he knows that's the key to saving everybody. And he gives it to them. And it's Spider-Man. It's the head of Scott Lang being floated around by the cloak of levitation. And it's 3/4 of T'Challa who's flying the plane. And they're heading back to Wakanda, and they think, oh, we've got it now. We'll get back. We'll use the Mind Stone, and we'll fix everything up. And as we get close, like 10 minutes out, we pan in to see the barrier of Wakanda with all these zombies trying to get out of it, because now they're all converted. And inside is Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet one stone short, the Mind Stone, which they're about to come deliver to them. And that's where the episode ends, and it's like, oh my God. I'm hoping next week is Party Thor, because we really need something lighter. They have just gotten darker, and darkest in the last 3 weeks. Now, I've got some issues. One of them, like I said, is the timing of it. It doesn't quite match up. Another is, yeah, it was a good episode in only 30 minutes. It really was. They did a good job on that. But, I mean, they're just going dark, dark, dark. So I would like them to break it up a little bit. The 3 dark episodes in a row is pretty severe. So, but my questions on it is, one would be, why did Thanos go to Wakanda? Originally, he goes to Wakanda when he arrives because that's where the Mind Stone is. But there's no Mind Stone in Wakanda, so why would he go to Wakanda? Why wouldn't he go to New Jersey? Second thing has to do with Marvel's always been based in New York and was always very realistic about New York. This episode has them trying to get to New Jersey and leaving from Grand Central Station, and you can't. You can't get to... If you want to go to New Jersey from New York, you have to leave from Penn Station. You can't leave from Grand Central Station. It doesn't connect. So that's you think New Yorkers would get that. I'm not a New Yorker. I've never been to New York, and I know that. So now I've got a couple questions, more theory-wise. What would zombie Thanos do with the Infinity Gauntlet? The original Thanos wanted to snap half the people away because of the resources. Would he snap half the zombies away? Would he de-zombify some of them to make the flesh pure again so they could feed on them? What would zombie Thanos do with the Infinity Gauntlet? I'm really curious about that. And then my last thought here, again, and this is another one where I don't see a direct tie-in to the Guardians of the Multiverse. JD, we may go a couple minutes long because I need to finish the thought before I wrap up the show, but there's nothing on after us, so I don't think it'll hurt. Some of the episodes has given us characters for the Guardians of the Multiverse, and others haven't. What if the Avengers didn't happen thing with the murder mystery, that didn't really give us a character. We got one out of the Doctor Strange, out of the Captain Carter, out of the T'Challa Star-Lord, but I don't see which character we're getting out of this. At least there's none on the posters. Could we get the Spider-Man with the Doctor Strange's cape? Sure. Zombie Hunter Spider-Man, that's a possibility. They did make a toy out of it, but it just seems like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's the one they're pulling. You know, we haven't, like I said, we've seen nothing about that. So I don't see how this connects. Scott Lang's head, yes. Wingardium Leviosa, just having him flying around with the cape, that would absolutely be the way I would go. You're right. I don't know what I was thinking, JD. Obviously, we're getting Scott Lang's head. The Futurama Scott Lang. I keep hearing online, a lot of people are talking about whether or not there will be sequels to these episodes. We know there's going to be a second season of What If. I don't think they're going to go any further with these stories because they were never meant that way in the comics. What If was always, let's take a snapshot at the world in a different way. So if we came back to this world, it would just be making a longer story. It's not giving us a new What If. The only time they ever continued it on, I remember there was an episode that was, what if Peter Parker hadn't married Mary Jane? Then the next issue was, what if Spider-Man had married Black Cat? Those I could see because one then leads to the next What If. This, I don't see a reason to go back to these things. Sure, they're interesting, but they're just alternative timelines or realities that we're seeing a glimpse of, and they all have that O. Henry ending that everything is. I mean, Captain Carter is the only one that, well, Captain Carter and the murder mystery one, those two had somewhat normal endings. Like, oh yeah, the world's still going to go on. But this one, obviously things weren't going to go well. Doctor Strange destroyed everything, and Ego showed up to talk to Peter and destroy planets. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to go back to that. Jay says, snap more living beings to eat. He took half the universe in Infinity War, so maybe 2 times the life of the universe. People have doubles, maybe. If I'm making sense, just woke up. Okay. Yeah, Jay, I see what you mean. Just by making more bodies for them to eat, more food. And yeah, he just doubled the resources. The Watcher will interfere in 1. Yes, we're definitely getting to the point where I think that's where we're leaning towards. The Watcher is telling us these stories. There is going to be one timeline that's going to need to be interfered with, and the Watcher is going to bring characters like Captain Carter and Strange Supreme and T'Challa Star-Lord together for something. Now, I'm assuming, and a lot of people are assuming, this will be the final episode of the season, but maybe this is all building up to, and we don't actually see the team put together until Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Because there's all these rumors about them some of these characters popping up in the film. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're building the team here, and then we'll get them in live action. No, because we wouldn't be able to get T'Challa. Something to think about. Overall, I thought it was a good episode, even for a zombie episode. I'm really hoping next episode's at least a little lighter. You know, we could use a little more fun. I mean, I'm looking back at the murder mystery one, thinking that was the fun one, when you got like Coulson sniffing corpses to go, ooh, he smells like lavender, and commenting about how good Thor looks. That's all I'm saying. And there does seem to be a theme about Thor being good looking, because Happy had the shirt of "I'm not single, I'm saving myself for Thor." So just saying. All right, guys, I am going to wrap it up here. We went a little long, but JD told the affiliates, so we'll be fine. And I hope you guys all have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday, where we'll do a spoiler talk of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We'll go in depth on that film and what it might mean overall, how it connects to the MCU, what exactly is Morris, and all of that. So tune in for that. Remember, all next week we are on at the 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, as Thursday's shows will now be on the same time slot as Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And that's it. JD, thanks for running the show. Brian, Jay, and everybody else, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great day.